Two Grumpy Old Men podcast. My name is Tim Bagwell, and the other grumpy old man is.
Rich Garling. Good morning.
Hey, Rich. Good to see you. And I recently saw your Substack article on the $435,000 house that broke the middle class. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, yeah, I certainly can. But what I really would like to know is what your
Jump right to
thoughts
it.
are on it. Yep, I'm going to jump right to it, Tim. and I wrote the article. Right, I'm of my. You can see what it is that I think. About the fact that housing has gotten way out of reach for the average Joe
Yes.
out there. It's
Yes.
just ridiculous.
And
And
Jane.
that Yeah, but yeah,
Family. Yeah.
Joe and Jane Sixpack, and that basically, and
Yes.
so you can see my thoughts, read the article, and everything.
Right.
What
Right.
I'm more interested in is what you think about it.
Well, I'm happy to report that we are far below the median. I guess it's happy to report that here in St. Louis, the median house is 260,000, and
Uh-huh.
we're not a wealth. We're not exactly a center of wealth,
Well, yeah,
and
but you did see, excuse me for interrupting, but you did see in the article that I compared Schaumburg to Decatur, Illinois.
right,
and
right.
and there's quite a price difference there too. I mean, you can buy a house for 80,000, 100,000 there.
You still have to have a
Unfortunately,
job.
you betcha. You can't. Well, I mean, when I went to NIU, um, I thought, I loved it. I really like living in DeKalb. DeKalb was a really nice town to live in,
Right,
and I still go back there occasionally to visit. I have friends there, kind of
right.
thing. But I still couldn't live there because it's just well, maybe now I could, but
Yeah,
for the long, for my working career, there wasn't anything there. I wasn't going to be a teacher at the university, you
right.
know. So
Well,
yeah,
I have the same affection, at least in terms of cost of living, as for Carbondale, for SIU, down
uh-huh.
Carbondale. For those of you outside of Illinois, that's Southern Illinois University and Northern Illinois University, opposite ends of the state, as it might indicate. And it was, uh, you have a restaurant row in a college town, and then you have the campus, and then you have low cost housing in general. So it works
Yeah,
out
yeah.
kind of
And then
nice.
after that, you got cornfields all over the place.
Well, you have cornfields. They had trees everywhere.
Oh,
That's
oh
what.
yeah, that's true. That's true. That's
Yeah.
because it's a national park there, right? In that area.
There is. I think that actually, your governor may have plans for a national park, but it's a Shawnee National Forest right
Right,
now. Right, it's a
right.
national forest, but not yet a national park. But I think there's some sort of plan going on for that.
Oh,
That may
okay.
help with the prices
And,
too.
and, and for folks who have never visited there, go. It is
Yeah.
such a gorgeous area. Such a
Yeah.
gorgeous area. What was it? We saw the something something of the gods. What the heck was that?
Not Garden of the Gods, but
Yeah,
they're.
Garden of the Gods. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I think. Well, let's put it this way: there's a lot of Gardens of the Gods because of the fact that not only did we see that one there,
You're good.
okay, yeah, but we also saw um, one in outside of Denver, Colorado,
Oh,
so I think they got them all over the place.
all over the place. All over the place. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So,
so
so back to the housing. Yeah. So like I said, we're our assessment is below the 260. Although I think the sale price might push the 260 to the median. I'm used to living on the median my entire life. So,
yeah,
but the thing that I always come it strikes me about. So what has to happen for you to get that house, whether it's 260, 194, or 435,000, and that's income.
yeah,
Income is
yeah,
the first thing. Is the first
yeah.
thing. Second thing, we won't get into all the details of income. That means you have to have a job generally for the middle class. You must be working. That's your income. You don't have a trust fund for the most part. You don't have your lottery winnings. You have to be bringing in a biweekly paycheck. Weekly if you're lucky, maybe monthly. But those things have to be coming in. And then, and I'm kind of like not informing our audience what they don't know already. But then there's your credit rating. All right, and your credit rating is affected by how you are able to pay your bills and keep them up to date. Not to have anybody be 30 days late and be reported. There's some wiggle room in that 30 days, but after 30, they're going to nick you
Oh,
one.
the utility companies don't give you wiggle room. They will report
They
you if
used
you are
to.
late. Yeah.
Yeah, they
And
used
those
they
days,
used to.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
a long time ago, I guess, but
yeah.
uh,
Oh, like '90s and the '90s down here. 3 months. 3 months. Yeah, you could go at least with electric. At least with electric, and I have an experience with that.
Commonwealth Edison or North Shore Gas up this way, or any of those, they don't give you any wiggle room
Well,
whatsoever.
but I'm not sure that they're reporting so much. I don't know how that. I know there were changes in the reporting systems. I'm not sure how the utilities for the longest time were not part of the because you're not giving credit. You're not charging interest.
Hmm.
Well, until you're late, so they're not charging interest. But I think the major thing though is yes, and so you want the home, but you also want a car, reliable transportation, or two, you
Yeah.
know, or big according to the size of your family. So there's another credit base, credit base, and you're
Well,
paying.
most families are going to have two cars, and that one for her, one for him. I mean, Gail and I just recently took a look at the idea of having just one car here in our family. All right, and it's not like we've got a ton of things that we're doing, this, but it
Mhm.
proved to be that remember I think I told you last week that the Hyundai was in the shop,
Right,
and they were going to have it for 3 or 4 days. Well, during that 3 or 4 days, we had to juggle our schedules around, and that as to who gets the car when, kind of
right,
thing.
right.
And we're like going, well, I guess that scratches that idea of not having two cars.
Well, and rentals are expensive, and they're kind of inconvenient. And it used to be you could get quality rentals, and my experience of late has been the quality of the rental vehicles have gone down. Well, actually, I was told by a representative of a major car rental agency that they keep the cars longer now
Hmm.
because so they're not turning them in as quickly, they're not turning them over as quickly, so you're not getting a brand new, you'll get a 2024 rental in 2025 as opposed to nice new spankly to 2025. So watch out for what you're renting. So there's the cost of the car, okay, not to mention regular living cost. So two major things that has been true since the 50s is the car and the house, cars and the house, you know. But what else got added on hugely was student loans.
Hmm.
Student
Hmm.
loans came in like a draconian hammer and ended up with people owing so much money that to the extent that many loan payments seem to be as high as a house payment, or at least half.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, when you sit there and you owe $100,000 on a student loan, and you're not being they're not even willing to look at forgiveness or anything like that. You can't even
bankruptcy. Yeah,
you can't declare bankruptcy on a student loan.
right.
I mean, any more than you can on a credit card, I guess.
This is
Uh,
fundamentally what the right doesn't understand, that the grassroots right doesn't understand. They've been fed this idea that you owe that money, you signed a contract.
yeah,
Well, how many bankruptcies have the wealthy availed themselves of, whether
exactly.
personal or behind a corporate mask?
How many
Well,
companies? How many companies out there have you heard about who declare bankruptcy and they restructure, what they owe, if they ever pay it at all, and that I mean Donald Trump. Sorry,
yeah,
Donald Trump's been through a
yeah,
few. I mean,
yeah.
and I I always have that little question of how many casinos have you heard of that went
Yeah,
bankrupt out there?
good bankrupt. Right.
I
The
haven't heard of too many,
Yeah, yeah. So
but
this
they
is
were all
this
owned by
is
Trump.
so it's kind of like it's possible to have between the house, the car, and the and let's just go down to a $260,000 St. Louis house, okay?
Okay, all right,
But
all right.
you get a new car or a year old car, the
Uh-huh.
house. If you had a if you had the mortgage payment, we're fortunate. We don't have that anymore. And then
Right.
if you have the student loan out there, those are likely easily to be. I want to give a more reasonable figure: 900, 900, 900. You know, or 1,000, 1,000, 1,000.
Yeah.
Not on the car. It shouldn't be 1,000 on the car unless you're an idiot.
true.
if you got a $260,000 house, you shouldn't have $1,000 car loan. But
Right.
my niece recently bought a 2024, um, lightly used, well cared for uh, Chevy Malibu from the dealership, and she's paying, and she's new to credit, relatively new to credit, and so she ended up with an 11% interest loan, which in
Oof.
2 years, with just with the changing employment situation, in 2 years she can get that renegotiated. But something else happened. Her insurance rate is almost equal to the car payment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So you got insurance, and if we talk about insurance on the cars, insurance on the house, especially depending on where you're living, this burden that you're talking about, not just on the not just from the mortgage of the overpriced home, and many of them I think are overpriced, obviously,
Hmm.
and the cars, and then the student loan, and then the insurance on these things. Where does it, you know,
Well, let's
get
talk.
your ramen noodles out.
Yeah, let's talk about maintenance on the car.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I mean,
Well,
what?
that's what led. She had a paid for car, and everything seemed okay. In Missouri, we require all kinds of inspections. She goes to get an inspection. They could not get the engine light to turn off. And that light has to go off before it can pass inspection. So we end
Wow.
up at the dealer, and they end up digging into the car. And I think everyone has a classic story of, I always call it the grandma story. Well, when you brought grandma in, it just looked like it was this little thing, but now it's much more extensive. And sorry, grandma's gone.
Exactly.
And she ended up having to
Exactly.
pay. She ended up having to pay 1,700 on the car that she wasn't going to own anymore for the work
And
that they did do, which
yeah,
is ridiculous.
and she can ill afford it, at that moment. So Tim, let's talk about the one thing. Okay, we're looking at how the cost of housing has gone up. We're looking at how the cost of insurance has gone up. How the mortgage rates have gone up. We talk about how maintenance has gone up and all this. But what's the one thing that hasn't gone up? You mentioned that you have to have an income, and
Yes,
unfortunately,
of course not.
the
Yeah,
rate of the rate of our income going up has not, and it hasn't since Ronald Reagan was president of the United
right,
States. Okay,
right.
and that's the one thing that really it drives me nuts because everything else is going up in price except for our paychecks.
Right.
Okay, and
Especially, especially the millennials and beyond.
oh
We
God, yeah,
probably, we boomers, we IT boomers in particular, in the middle class, had a little upsurge in the '90s, kind of nice, you know.
right,
But
right,
yeah, but after that, the millennials, after the .com crash and
they
the
all
Y2K, that wasn't a big deal crash.
yeah yeah. I remember that. I remember doing
And
time for that one.
we're not going to be suckered again into some sort of IT scare that causes IT salaries to go up. Then and they I spoke to I spoke to I have a friend I haven't spoken to in a long time, but he became a lawyer, but he worked in IT for years, and he said corporations decided they were not going to have. I think we saw articles about the new IT class, the new tech class, and it's like corporate America came in and said no more. You know, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
I mean,
it
IT professionals were making money like lawyers,
yeah.
and yeah, and then nope, can't have that going on.
No, they're starting to try to cut back the pay, on a lot of those. But yet, all these corporations and businesses are so computer dependent, but yet they don't want to pay anymore, for the people to maintain that stuff, and everything. So the point is that since Ronald Reagan, income has not gone up anywhere near, what it
What the
should be,
cost of-
and
yeah.
that wage growth.
Well,
Well,
Rich, I
I
want
do
to
that.
correct you. I want to correct you.
Why?
The 1% have done fine.
Oh yes, yes, they have. In fact, so fine. Here, let me do this. I'm going to share my screen for a second here. Okay. Let me see if we can do this correctly. I don't get a chance to do this very
Oh
often.
boy,
Let's see. Window.
dear audience, we've been working on this for a while.
Yeah.
We're working on our bells and whistles.
Oh,
Well,
hang
that's
on.
cool.
Yeah, wrong screen. Hang on. Let me try it again. Come on. window. There's the one I want to show you. Sorry about this, folks. Yeah,
Yeah. So
there you go.
sorry about the Spire gas backhoe that probably you may be able to hear beeping in the back.
Yeah,
Oh,
well, wait.
it
Charlie will
stopped.
start barking pretty soon too.
No, it stopped.
You
I
know?
mentioned it and it stopped.
So
Go
here you
ahead.
go. You see this? Okay.
Yes.
Average pay for workers since Ronald Reagan gone up only 21%.
Hmm.
Okay, where it's gone up 146% for the CEO. But
Right.
as you can see, the average price of a house just keeps going up and up and up and up. And
Yeah.
that now here's the thing that I had mentioned to people in the article in here is that you got this down payment thing going on here. You know,
Yep.
what is a
Saw
down
that.
payment these days? Like 15%, maybe 20%, depending on how well what your credit rating is, what your income looks like, and all this. If your credit rating is bad and your income is bad, guess what? They're going to charge you even more money. So they're expecting you to cough up even more money in order to buy this house.
Yep.
Okay, and that,
Because that
and
is the American dream.
yeah. Well, like you were saying, without the house, you've got, you got to have a car. You got to be able to pay for your college loans. If you have gone to college, and I think that's one thing that's turning a lot of young people off from even going to college because they're talking about just doing the trades as to make a living.
Yep.
And that so, but just the mere cost of an education, you look at how much they're going to pay just to get an education for the trades because you're expected to go to a junior college to learn how to be a carpenter, to learn how to be a mechanic, an electrician, and a plumber and what have you. And then you get into the unions and what have you, and they're going to do further training, but at least you get paid there,
Yeah.
But you don't get paid as much as a journeyman does, kind of thing. So the point is that down payment, just I mean, you look at your 260,000 in that, or as I think I did here,
Well,
I
and
did
they're getting
this
that if
part.
they are able to come up with that money, they're getting it from mom and dad.
Yeah,
Mom and
yeah,
dad are dipping into their funds to get that. This
yeah.
reminds me of something. This reminds me of something. It's almost as if, actually, this goes all the way back to the Declaration of Independence, believe it or not, because one of the
You can
grievances.
remember that far back, huh?
Yeah, yeah, because we're grumpy, we're old men. In the Declaration of Independence, one of the grievances was that the king was setting up administrations in adjacent territories that were going to be used in the colonies. They were dictatorial administrations set up in Canada, set up in the Northwest Territories. That so they were setting up policies and administrative structures there that were going to be used in the colonies and be less freedom. Then fast forward, okay, into the post World War II. What do we have? Oh, we have both the GI Bill and part of that GI Bill was, oh, you can get your home. We will give you a good rate on a mortgage, a VA guarantee
Hmm.
mortgage,
Yeah.
unless you're black.
Yes.
The white money, I'll say it,
Well, it's the
continued to
continuation of
rob
the Jim
African
Crow stuff.
Americans. Huh?
It's the continuation of the Jim Crow laws and things.
Well,
You know.
that and it robbed African American ability to create equity in their families.
Yeah.
To create equity in their family, equity in terms of to equity in the family.
Well,
That's the wrong concept. But to gain equity financially through a ownership of a home that they could resell and move into a better home, and and to pass that wealth along to their kids. So back to that model of the king in the Declaration of Independence, they decided it looks like they decided to extend this model to everybody, make it too expensive for uh, new home buyers. Oh, that's your. I was clicking on your screen, trying to close the window. Uh,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted to see my bigger picture. Yeah. So the wealthy have a pattern. It looks like of wanting to always indenture, enslave, and control as much of the population as they can. but they don't seem to understand the bell-shaped curve on that. You know, there's a bell-shaped curve. Ask the French. Ask the Russians. You know, there's
Yeah.
and ask the post World War One German. I mean, the German Revolution of 1919. They also, you know, there was some revenge taking on the wealthy, especially in Russia and especially the French Revolution. But you know, the realization that the wealthy do not have the interest of the masses in their plan. You know, and I don't understand what they. I don't know how Elon expects to get to Mars if he has an impoverished United States. I don't quite get
Exactly.
it. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And
So
if he thinks he's going to get, IT professionals from other countries to come on over here so that he can get himself to Mars, well, I think eventually they're going to look at this and go, well, what the hell do we need you for? We can just do it ourselves,
right, right, right.
kind of thing. Now,
And good.
take a look. I'm gonna because
You're
if you
pointing at
look at
something I can't see. Or
okay,
already
if you look at what I have on the screen there,
okay,
okay, and
The Schomburg
yeah,
Decatur.
okay.
Yeah, okay.
One of the things that I didn't note, and I should have in the article, is let's say, for instance, you go to live in Decatur, Illinois. You buy a house for $80,000, okay, and you buy it with a 30-year mortgage, okay, and let's say your mortgage is at 7, 8%, whatever the heck it may be, all right, and you have a job, and let's say it's in a small manufacturing plant, and this small manufacturer most likely probably make parts for the auto industry or something of that nature. Who knows? For sure, whatever it may be. But the point is that let's say, for instance, that manufacturer says to you, "Hey, you've come up in the ranks enough that we want you to move to the central office." And our central manufacturing plant, and it happens to be located, wow, in Schaumburg, Illinois. So
Uh
now you
huh.
got to, so you have a choice here, really. They're not going to let you stay in Decatur. You want your job, you got to move to Schaumburg. But if you move to Schaumburg, you now have to buy a house that's say valued at $360,000. Okay, but you've
Uh
got an
huh.
$80,000 house. You've only been living there for say 5 or 10 years. Okay,
Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
that. So how
Yeah.
much equity do you have even built up in the house? Practically none, because the first 10 years, usually you're just paying off the interest on the house. You might be touching the equity a little bit, so maybe you've got $4 or $5,000, of equity in an $80,000 house at the end of that 10 years. But that ain't a whole heck of a lot. So when you sell your house in Decatur, you can't use anything from it because you still owe $80,000 on the house.
Right.
So and all you can get for the house, even if you could get 85,000, you still got to cough up, 60 some $1,000s or more for a down payment, which puts you even more in debt. Yeah, you may have a job and all this sort of stuff, but now you're suddenly even more in debt than you were before, much
Right.
more. And
Right.
and so where's that upward mobility? How does that uh, how do you how does that advantage you?
Yeah.
you know, I don't
Well,
see any advantage.
the wealthy are the ones. Again, the wealthy are the ones who put the cap on. Who said you can't relieve yourself of your student loan debt through bankruptcy. You
Right.
know, but we can still send our kids to college off of our trust funds, off their trust funds.
That's right.
You know, they haven't got, they don't care, and it's if you sign again back to how what they fed the lower classes on the right is that there's a moral obligation to that loan, and it's like no, there is no there is no moral obligation of contract. Contracts are supposed to contain pains and penalties for noncompliance,
Now,
agreeable by both parties.
yeah,
And yeah, and that is not. Also, we used to be based on the theory of fresh start, and there's no fresh start with student loans. There's not
that's
a
right.
because yeah, yeah,
So then what happens? So you're looking at your situation here, and you've got student loans up the wazoo. Okay, you got a car loan that you're trying to pay off. You got a job that's not paying you as well, and your pay increases certainly aren't coming in. And all this. You're expected to pay for your medical insurance, even though the company provides you with medical insurance. And mind you, it's a lot cheaper than the open market. But still, I mean, I'll give you an example. Gail and I, when we had medical insurance through work, it was $600-700 a month for the both of us. All right, and so that was an expense, along with
Right.
yeah, and so what ends up hurting? What ends up getting hit really bad because of all of this? The housing market.
Yep.
Nobody's gonna, they can't buy a house because they can't afford it.
Right.
Okay, they can't, and mostly because they can't come up with a down payment on the house. Because they're expected to come up with 10 or 50, unless they get some kind of a government program
Well,
loan. But even
and
but
this
even
goes
then, it's a lot of money.
well, and then it's also back to the bell-shaped curve. Eventually, this doesn't help the real estate, the people who work in the real estate, the people who work in construction, the people who own the houses that they're going to be selling. I mean, the companies that have bought the homes that for sale or
Hmm.
built them, they where it stops at some point,
Yeah,
and yeah,
yeah.
the
And then you see California worrying about a so-called housing shortage. Okay, and
yes,
and when you can't when you when the demand for houses is not there any longer, you're not going to build as many houses, and so what ends up happening? You know, those who want to buy a house, well, they've got a smaller market in which to buy in, and that smaller market causes, so you've got some demand there, but your supply is going away, and so what happens is that the price of that house goes up even further, which puts
yeah,
it more out of reach. For
yeah,
people, so it's a double whammy there. And California is sitting there trying to make it so that they can build more affordable housing, out there. But the problem that well, the deal that they made in the end is that they're going to pay the contractor, the carpenters and the plumbers and the electricians and all those people less money so that they can make those houses more affordable. But in the meantime, the people who build, who are the how do you put them? The businesses, that own, the companies that build the houses. Okay, they don't take a cut in their margins.
nope,
But you and I are expected to take a cut in our pay
right,
so that
right,
we
right,
can build
right,
affordable housing.
right.
It's like,
Yeah,
really, guys? And that,
yeah.
and then on top of that, add the tariffs that Trump wants to put on there. And where do we get most of our lumber for building houses in the United States?
I would assume Canada.
It's the Canadians, I believe. And so
Yeah.
now, so now the materials cost more money. Now, are you going to ask the Canadians to cut their prices? Well, the
Oh.
Canadians are going to look at us and go, "You got tariffs on us, pal. That's what's costing you money."
Trump claims that they are raking in money. And they're going to give people a little bonus. People of certain income categories will get a little bonus.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think that's going to work at all.
You get down to it in the end, who's paying for those tariffs? It's you and me. Okay,
Yeah.
because
Oh, yeah.
because the companies in
Well,
Mexico, Gail and I were having an argument about this last night. Because she was trying to understand how this whole thing is. Why is it that in the end I'm the one paying the bill for it? And I go, well, it's simple. Let's just take an avocado. Okay, you used to pay, let's say, $1 an avocado. Well, they got a 15% tariff now. Now you're paying $1.15 for that.
yes.
For
And you're usually
that
buying more than
avocado.
one avocado. And you're usually buying more than one avocado.
Well, yeah, but the point is, you got
Yeah.
to make the example simple. Okay, Tim, come on.
I know. I know. I know. Yeah.
And so, and I said, so now you're paying $1.15. She goes, well, wait, but I don't understand where the Mexicans pay, that. I says, well, they got to get the money from someplace. So if eventually it gets to the grocery store, that 15 cents is going to eventually find its way back down to the Mexicans who sold that avocado in the first place, and now that's how they pay the tariff,
Yeah.
and all this on there. It says it's silly, but that's the way it works. And
Yeah.
the idea behind a tariff is, since let's put it this way: nobody in the United States grows avocados, and all that. So putting a tariff on avocados is the silliest thing in the world. Okay, but you know perhaps with lumber from Canada, well, we got a lot of forest here in the United States, and so we can certainly get our fair share of lumber, from the lumber companies who grow the trees, and do all that sort of stuff. So, to a certain point, I can understand putting a tariff on something that is a direct competition with what we're doing. I mean, that's what the idea of a tariff is supposed to be, is to get you to buy American versus buying foreign products. Well, that,
I would say about the lumber is that of course the plan for that, the backup plan is national forest. Let
yeah,
them exploit the national forest and even the national parks. They let the lumber companies have at it because
yeah, but
there's no environmental impact.
well,
CO2 is
no,
not a pollutant, and
yeah, yeah. But here's the thing: the lumber companies, where they own land, hundreds of thousands of acres, that they can grow trees on, and so they only cut a certain portion, okay, of lumber, and then they replant trees in that portion,
right,
and they keep growing it, and so they have this, they keep their inventory going, so to speak.
right,
Okay, they're not so dumb as to just simply cut and then walk away like we used to, say 200, 150 years ago, and
right,
all that, because they realize it's like, wait a minute, we're going to run out of inventory here. you know,
exactly.
let's grow some more trees.
Of
So,
course,
and that,
if there's nobody buying houses, then it's moot.
well, at that point, you don't cut down as many trees, kind of thing. At least I would hope that they're not cutting down as many
But
trees.
there's consequences to not building any homes anymore.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. If they don't build more homes, then your supply is limited, but your demand is still there. Which means the price of that house is going to go up. But
Yep.
who? But again, back to who the heck can afford to buy a house for 460? I mean, it's great that my house. Let's use my parents' house as an example. I grew up in Highland Park, Illinois, and my parents bought the house that I grew up in, and my family still lives in, for I think it was like $15,000.
Yep.
That house today is worth somewhere around $800,000. Who the hell can afford to buy that house for $800,000?
Yeah.
I mean,
My
think
parents
about that.
bought my parents bought their 80-acre farm in 1960 for ready $23,000.
Yeah, yeah.
Upon upon my mother's passing, we sold the farm, and this was actually we got taken a little bit, but for 300,000. You know, and this is downstate Illinois, but not the thick black dirt of Decatur.
Uh-huh.
It's just yeah. If it there were other farms that sell for a lot more, but yeah. So that's times change, and by the way, that portion paid off the house I'm living in now.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
portion of that paid off this portion. So
Well,
no, yeah. So that
in
worked
my
out.
case,
That worked.
yeah. But in my case, I'm not getting anything out of it. That because I told my family basically, buy me out on my portion of it, and I walked away from it. Because quite
You were
honestly,
asleep.
when I owned a house, I didn't want to have to, the BS that comes with owning two houses and with family.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
That's
was like,
not.
no, I don't want to deal with
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that. Walk away from that noise. And
So in
oh, here,
conclusion,
tell you what, I'm gonna start.
in
I'm gonna
conclusion,
start. Yeah, go ahead. In conclusion, I'm
well, I
gonna
was going
start
to say
sharing
in
my screen.
conclusion, Rich, on the
Yeah.
housing issue, we're screwed.
Oh yeah. Oh
We're not
yeah.
screwed, you and me, but there are people who are screwed.
Yes. Yes.
Millions of
But
people who are
well,
screwed.
actually, we don't necessarily get through it, but it's going to impact us because of the fact that as that market goes down and the housing costs go up and everything, that increases our property taxes. Because remember,
Yes,
the property taxes are a percentage, of the value of the
yes,
home and
exactly.
everything. But the point ends up being that, gee whiz, I can't afford to sell, I can't sell the house because nobody's going to buy it at that price. So eventually you're gonna, eventually what's going to happen is we'll have a crash. It'll drop. It'll
Yeah,
have to. It will
yeah,
have to. And
yep,
so folks, that's really where we're at. We've got ourselves in a tough spot, in a sticky wicket, I think they call it. I
that's what
think
the
that's what
Brits
they said.
would.
Yeah, I think that's what the Brits said. and you know, and 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 we have, unfortunately, a president who doesn't seem to, for somebody who's been in real estate, you'd think he'd understand that better, but for some
Yeah,
reason
well,
doesn't.
no, he understands bankruptcy. So
Yeah, yeah, he
as
understands it
we're
very
talking
well.
here, my phone is ringing with this number here. Okay, I'm pretty sure this number because it just says Missouri is somebody looking to buy my home.
Uh-huh.
You
There
get
you
those
go.
calls? You get those
And what?
calls?
Well, no, we don't. We get stuff in the mail. Okay,
Yeah.
and,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and the snail mail, and that. I don't get any emails or anything like that. And
yeah,
I mostly get phone calls from people who want to sit there and fix the chimney that doesn't exist on my house.
yeah.
I'm like, going, really, guys?
Well, these guys, but they all have the same spiel, which is, are you interested in selling your home? No. Do you have other property you're interested in selling? I said no.
God,
So
you know.
thank you for your effort. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so I'm constantly blocking, and supposedly reporting junk phone calls,
yeah,
but you know how far that actually goes
yeah,
anymore.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it, so I
So
mean, everybody complained about, getting junk phone calls or getting junk email, and supposedly there's this government department, that's supposed to handle all that stuff. Well, it didn't work well before Trump, and it's certainly not working at all now. I'm sure, and that's so, uh, but. Yeah, let's see. We've been talking
wait a
for a
minute
little
here.
bit
Yeah,
here.
we're at 35. And I will say, hold on a moment. So, there you go. That wraps it up for Two Grumpy Old Men podcast on the eve of our housing crisis, so to speak. I am Tim Bagwell.
And I'm Rich Carling.
For both of us, remember that we all have a role to play in saving our democracy.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All
Yeah,
righty. Have a good day, everyone.
have a good day. Thank you.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm trying to stop the recording, and it won't stop. Why won't it stop?
I would recommend not talking while it's not stopping.
Well, I can cut this out. I'm not worried about that.
I know.
I'm not sharing the screen anymore, but the stop is grayed out. It won't let me. It won't let me
Huh.
stop it.
I can't do anything to it. I see the record.
Yeah, I see the record button
Hmm.
up on the top.
What if I leave?
Give it a try. See what happens. No, that didn't do it. What would happen if I? Oh, end session for all.